We are deep into winter, so what better time to rank the Thing movies? Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a good one today. I'm the movie ranker, and today I'm going to be ranking all three The Thing movies from worst to best. It's getting really chilly around here. We're deep into January, so what better time to rank a franchise that takes place in the cold, in the Antarctica or Arctic, depending on which movie you're watching. Of course, the original story for this was taken from a novel called Who Goes There, which I just ordered. I never read it before, but I'm excited to dive into that. But for now, I'll be just discussing these three films, so without wasting any more time, let's dive in. So for me, coming in the last place at number 3, I have to go with The Thing from Another World, released in 1951. This was released at the time where sci-fi movies were reaching like their max popularity. There were so many of these alien sci-fi type flicks coming out in the 50s. It all started back in the 30s, but at this point it reached, I think, the masses at this point. Interesting enough, this movie takes place in the North Pole in the Arctic, while everything else, the other films in the book takes place in Antarctica, which was a different little change here. But yeah, it still feels the same. We're in this isolated land, nowhere to go. This time our creature is like plant-based. It's a much different style of movie than the other two. This one, it's a plant-based alien creature that has seeds all through him, and he basically needs blood to reproduce instead of water, like most plants, which is an interesting concept. But we don't get the paranoia factor in here because it doesn't imitate people. The creature itself, he looks more like a giant, almost Frankenstein monster with like sharp claws. Definitely doesn't have the effects of the 80s or the 2011 film, of course. We get a ton of characters in here, but only a couple of them are memorable. The dialogue, too, is crazy in here. Nobody gets a chance to breathe, especially in the first half of the film. Everybody's talking, and as soon as one person's done, another person talks, and it's just like, okay, guys, calm down. That's not how normal conversations work. But again, this is a 50s film, so there are things that are a bit outdated. And just the way the conversations go about, they're much more scientifical in here, so sometimes you kind of get lost in the conversations. And the movie really seems to take about 30-40 minutes or so to really get interesting, and then I found myself be much more invested from there right to the end. But yeah, a decent movie. If you're a fan of 50s cinema, this is probably one of your favorites. It's incredibly influential, even though it's based off a book. This movie itself is still highly influential. Of course, it helped inspire John Carpenter's classics, so I gotta give it credit where credit's due. It's just my least favorite out of these three films. Up next, at number 2, I have to go with the 2011 version of The Thing, which is a prequel to John Carpenter's 1982 film. It's a prequel, but it plays out kind of like a remake. It repeats some of the same beats as the John Carpenter film. We still get paranoia. We still get a lot of tension amongst our group. I love Mary Elizabeth Winstead, which is our lead. I think she does great. She reminds me a bit of Sigourney Weaver's character Ripley a little bit in this one, especially from Alien 1, how she wants to do more things by protocol and do things right, where everybody else is like, no, we found an alien, They don't really care about the safety of everybody. And of course, there being a language barrier between her and the rest of the people here since they're all Norwegian, it just adds more to that paranoia and who you can trust. But it's just real fun watching all the little things that you can pick up, little Easter eggs from 1982 film, like seeing how the axe got into the wall, how the creature with like two bodies stuck together, the two faces, how it ended up burnt outside. We get to see all that in here, which is really cool. It makes a great companion piece when you watch this with the original. Going through this ranking this time around, I actually watched this one first. I usually do them in chronological order, but not this time, and it worked out pretty fine. My only little nitpick would be concerning the whole spaceship scene. That plays out a bit different than how things end up in the original. But aside from that, they did a really good job at making this a prequel. But of course, the big elephant in the room is the special effects in here. They're god awful. Nothing can beat practical effects. And what really pisses me off about this movie is they actually did everything practical when they made this movie. They had the right intentions, but the studio wasn't a big fan and they wanted to cover everything up in CGI. So it takes away a lot of the terror because it just looks like these computer generated monsters coming at you instead of the real thing. It looks fake, it looks cartoonish a bit. Not the worst CGI, but it definitely takes you out of the film, especially this being a prequel to a movie that's known to be the best at practical effects ever. And you're going to turn around and splash a bunch of CGI on that? Terrible, terrible idea. But aside from the effects, my only other nitpick I have with this movie would be what happens to Mary Elizabeth Winstead's character, the main character. They want to be kind of ambiguous, I think, just like the 1982 film with the way that ends, but this time it just doesn't work. She seems to be one of the last survivors, and she just gets into that bulldozer thing with the tracks, and it just fades to black. And I'm like, that's not satisfying one bit. Yes, I get that. I'll talk about the 1982 film in a little bit about that ending, but the way this one ending just wasn't satisfying to me. It's like they were trying to be ambiguous like the last one, but it failed miserably. But I do love when the credits come up and we get that those Norwegian guys getting in the helicopter and shooting at the dog, which really connects this to the 1982 film very, very well. So yeah, I enjoy this movie. It's just so unfortunate that we don't get to see the great practical effects that they used. You get to see some of them in the special features, but they never made it to film. It's all covered in CGI, and it sucks. But for me, easily coming in the first place is the John Carpenter classic from 1982, The Thing. Part remake, part reboot, part adaptation of the novel, and it just took the best of everything and ran with it. It does its own thing, and it's so good. It's so full of tension and paranoia due to this creature being able to mimic and imitate anything that's living, right? So nobody's safe. You never know who is really the thing. And I love rewatching this movie over and over and trying to pinpoint when everybody got infected and who was the first. That's just so fun no matter how many times you watch this film. We get a lot of characters, but they're all fun and they're all memorable for the most part, especially our main lead, McGreedy, which is played by Kurt Russell. And he's this awesome, like, pilot that's an alcoholic and he has kind of an attitude. And he's just basically goes into survival mode right away, but not just for his sake, but for humanity's sake. He's willing to risk his life and all of his crew to save the world because he knows that this thing gets out, it's done. The world is done. So I really like that about his character. Very strong character, and just how everybody else on his crew starts to suspect him as the thing. And he doesn't mess around. He hauls out guns. He has his dynamite in his arms. It's just so fun to watch. We got awesome cinematography here. Dean Cundy did an excellent job. I love the nighttime scenes when they have their flares and the light off the flare with the blue dark background. Looks so good. Of course, the landscape being covered in snow, this being in Antarctica, makes it very isolated and just give you more of a sense of there's no way of getting out of here. You know, you're trapped, you're isolated, and all this has adds so much to the tension. We got a fantastic score in here. I love that it almost resembles a heartbeat at times, like a foreign heartbeat, which could represent like the alien in this winter land. And yeah, it just pairs with the film so well. Love everything about it, but one of the best things is obviously the effects, the practical effects. What's his name? Rob Bottin, I think, did them. And man, and the guy ended up hospitalized from exhaustion because he worked so hard on these, and it really paid off though. Still looks fantastic 40 years later. I mean, this movie will stand the test of time due to its great practical effects. It's still mind-blowing how they did some of these things. It's definitely one of the best set of practical effects we've ever seen in film. It's definitely up there. Top 3 material, if not the best. I love like when the head sprouts legs and goes crawling around. It's disgusting, it's gooey, it's bloody, and it just looks phenomenal. And what else is there to say about this film? It's just genius. John Carpenter, it's possibly his best film, maybe even better than Halloween. I think I prefer this to Halloween. That's just a personal thing, but I know this movie has its fans. It's highly rated nowadays, even though when it came out, it was bashed by critics and everybody. It almost caused John Carpenter to stop directing. Thank God he didn't stop. And finally, the next few generations that came out really started to appreciate this film, and I'm glad it's getting everything it deserves, the recognition it deserves. And it's one of the best horror movies ever made. It's got great characters, great effects, an amazing monster, and he's really unique how he can imitate and whatnot. And what does he really look like? Because we get some really weird creature moments that almost look like crab-like or spider-like, mixed with like these like tentacles almost. It's very interesting look and something we've never seen before. So yeah, this is basically the perfect horror movie. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. It's one of the best, and it easily comes in the first place in my ranking. So there you have it, guys. There's my ranking of all the Thing movies. I hope you enjoyed it. I can see people have different rankings in this. Not everybody will have the 1982 John Carpenter classic in first place, even though most people will. If you're a big movie buff, love watching 50s sci-fi movies, 40s and 50s, that one might maybe your favorite, the 1951 version. So I won't fault you for that. They're all great movies in their own way, but some of them have more flaws than others. So that's what I want to hear, how you rank these movies down in the comments section. Would love to hear it. You can follow me on Instagram and Letterboxd. Links to those are always in the description of my videos, guys. And until next time, thanks for watching.